I just wanted to let everybody know about a little bit about this center. So me and my beautiful partner over there, Monica, wave. We started this center up in January of this year. She was looking for a space for her school pods that she teaches and a place where she can expand and hopefully maybe one day have a charter school going, which will be amazing. I was really looking for a place where I could bring the Freedom community together for business, for socials, for whatever it is that the community needed, so that we weren't so isolated and we had a few more options other than being stuck in our homes. So essentially, like I said, when we started this, it was kind of a lot of big dreams and trying to bring the community together and just having somewhere to come so that we could support each other and love each other and like I said, just build our community and keep the community that we had built through the rallies together, no matter what happened. I won't take up too much time. I really appreciate everyone that's come out here tonight. I know there's a lot more coming later on. But just thank you for coming. This space is only able to succeed with members. This is going to be a member-driven community. We really actually are in a place right now where we have to increase that membership, or we may not have this space very much longer, because me and Monica have been personally paying for the space for the shortfalls with the membership. But a lot of it was because when this first opened, we weren't able to really market this properly. We couldn't go tell the world that we were open and had this space. But now we have the opportunity, with things opening up a bit, that we can still share this space and still have this space no matter what happens in the future. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker. Big hero of mine. He's always been super courageous, and I've always enjoyed listening to him speak, and I'm so grateful that you came out here tonight, and thank you so much. I know you are on a time limit tonight, so Pastor Art Pawlowski.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was not really sure what am I doing here. And first of all, I want to thank you, all of you, for what you have been doing for the past 2 years, because that's what it means to be a Canadian, is to stand up. When I emigrated to this great country, I remember the meeting I had in an embassy in Greece, in Athens, and some of you may know my story, but we grew up behind the Iron Curtain in Poland, and we had to escape on a boat to Turkey and from Turkey to Greece. But Europe was very corrupted, and we were sick and tired of corruption. We were sick and tired of bribing the police officers and the politicians. And when the Canadian embassy opened its doors and they said, come to Canada, and when we had the meeting in the embassy, they told us, Canada is the freest country on earth. Sell everything you have, come to Canada. In Canada, no one will ever persecute you for your faith. And here I am, today. Over 100 court cases, 16th arrest. That was the last one with RCMP, with detectives, Calgary police, officers waiting outside my door for a week, monitoring me coming in, going out, and excuse me for what? Then I have found myself in solitary confinement for almost 2 months. I was kidnapped from Calgary Riemann and taken to Edmonton for no reason, put on a max pod inside a place on the 3rd floor where you put the most dangerous, violent offenders, murderers, by myself. No one else. And then the next day they put me in a psych ward without the knowledge of doctors, without the knowledge of AHS, against the law. So here's what I want to talk about a little bit. I put a few thoughts together because what we are witnessing right now is a simple repetition of history. What we're seeing right now is lawlessness. We're being told left and right, follow the law, follow the mandates, follow the restrictions. Those people here in Ottawa, they were called lawbreakers, terrorists. But the truth is that villains, psychopaths, the modern day communist Nazis, as I call them, they are the true lawbreakers. So I want to thank you for thank you all for standing up, for being real Canadians, for loving this beautiful country of ours, and for your willingness to defend it, not just with your words, but with your deeds. You know, words are cheap, right? But when you stand up and you follow what you preach, and that's what Christianity is all about. That's what I do. When I tell a group of people, stand up and fight for your rights, but yet I myself am not willing to do it, am I not a hypocrite? And that's exactly what we're seeing in the government buildings right now. They are all filled with hypocrites and liars. They're supposed to represent us, they're supposed to protect us and serve us, but they have turned to be tyrants. So you do show up when you're needed the most. And I believe that is what it means to be a Canadian. When you are needed the most, you make yourself counted in an army. And do not kid yourself. I just saw some tongues over there. I grew up in a country that started solidarity movement in 1980, where 50,000 communists were ruling over 36 million Poles. Until one day, the 36 million Poles said one simple thing. Wait a second. There's more of us than of them. Why are we serving them? Why are we allowing them to enslave us and our loved ones, our children? And they took it to the streets. It's a war. We are in a war. We are fighting against corruption at the highest levels, lawlessness, abuse of power, treason, medical tyranny, and political propaganda. In my country, if you were caught listening to European radio, you could go to prison for 5 years just for listening to European broadcast. If you were caught having a pamphlet that was not approved by the Communist Party of Poland, you were tortured first and then sentenced to 1 year imprisonment. Propaganda is very important for those people, because in order to keep the tyranny going, people have to be terrorized and brainwashed or indoctrinated, if you will. The lie has to be supported by more lies, misinformation, and disinformation. And that's exactly what we are witnessing right now. But you see, we are not fighting with swords and pistols. As you know, I spent almost 2 months in prison because the Kenny government and Kenny himself, the premier of this beautiful province of Alberta, said that I was inciting people to commit acts of violence against other human beings. If you listen to my speech in Coutts, you know that 3 times during my speech I told them peacefully. This is not a fight with guns and with swords. This is a Mahatma Gandhi civil rights movement style. This is Martin Luther King Jr. This is solidarity with Lech Wałęsa, when millions of Poles finally took it to the streets and said, no more. We will not participate in this great evil. So we're not fighting with swords and pistols. I want to repeat that because those devils will be listening. And they have no problem to manipulate and lie. We do not fire rifles. We do not bring horses to trample our fellow neighbors. They, the Trudeaus of today, they do that. We use something that is far more effective and a lot more powerful than all the guns and tongues combined together. So my fellow friends, my fellow Canadians, we fight using love, unity, respect for each other, and the truth that destroys all the lies of those that hate freedom. And those weapons they fear the most. When a man that speaks the truth opens his mouth, the evildoers are terrified. Our tongue, a weapon that can expose tyrants and it can build nations. A weapon that goes further than a bullet and is stronger than the steel. United under the umbrella of unity with our words, my friends, will always win, no matter what. The lie has to always be supported by more lies, but the truth is like a pillar. It stands on its own. So let us keep speaking the truth. The truth that the Bible says will set the captives free. I want to remind you about a great Canadian, and like I shared with some today, I believe he was partially Polish, Prime Minister of this great country, Diefenbaker. When I read his story, I was fascinated. And when I read some of his quotes, I couldn't believe it that just not long ago there was a politician, someone that actually believed in freedom and the idea of Canada. Because don't kid yourself, North America is an idea. And like every idea, it can crumble. It can be destroyed. But if supported by enough like-minded individuals, it will never be shaken. A great Canadian, an amazing patriot, with words that should be on our lips wherever we go. Words from the past that terrifies the villains of today. So here is John Diefenbaker, the Prime Minister of Canada, serving this great nation from 1957 to 1963. And listen to what he said. I am a Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, or free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to you uphold for myself and all mankind. So let's just go through those few words. What it means to be a Canadian. What it means to be able to express yourself freely without fear. Do you know that by speaking to you right now, I'm risking imprisonment? Because those people are terrified of people like me. And you don't see me with pistols and guns and tanks outside. The only thing I use is my tongue, which has become the most powerful weapon of all times. They're terrified, because liars are always terrified of those that speak the truth. I'm wondering how would it even feel? Go outside and express yourself without thinking that there is a crooked politician listening or propaganda Goebbels, mainstream media, CBC reporters listening, twisting the story, and there is a gangster in uniform with a badge of authority and a pistol and handcuffs, ready to attack you at any moment, and not because you have stolen something, not because you're raping kids, not because you are murdering your fellow neighbors. No. Those people have free pass. When I was in prison, they were treated a lot better than I was treated. They put me in metal boxes on concrete. They kept me in solitary confinement without being able to see anyone. When I was coming out of cell for 1 hour a day, all other inmates were commanded to go in. You see, psychological warfare, a war to break a man. And in the middle of this craziness, the Crown Prosecutor offered me a deal and said, hey, you can go home, you can go to your wife, you can go if you want to, just plead to one charge. And all the other charges, forget about it. We will remove them. Here is what they want. And it's very simple. They want you to bow. If you bow, they have won. They achieved what they wanted. They wanted me to bow so they can run their front story newspaper saying Pastor Art Pawlowski finally admits he's a criminal. Finally, he is broken. Finally, we have our story that says, yes, I admit I've done something wrong. But what did I do? I was invited to conduct a church service to a people that needed help. We brought food to the truckers. I told them to do it peacefully. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything crazy. I did a Lord's Supper. I encouraged Canadians, telling them, stand up for your rights. And keep standing up. Free to speak without fear. Free to worship in my own way. You can worship your God the way you choose to worship your God. If you want, you can worship a cow. There's some people that do. I don't care. It's up to you. As long as you have your rights to worship a donkey, I should have my right to worship the living God. Is that not the idea of New World without persecution? Do you know the history of North America? It was the pilgrims that came from Europe escaping persecution. People like me were burned on the stakes in 1600s. And they came here because they were sick and tired of some people telling them what they can and cannot do. Well, it's a repetition of history. That's what we're seeing right now. That's what Trudeau is doing. He's telling you how to worship your God. He's telling you what you can and what you cannot say or do. I want to be able to worship my God in my own way. And the Bible way is leave your doors open, and if there's anyone thirsty, anyone hungry, anyone that needs help, is welcome to come into the sanctuary. And that's exactly what I did. And for that, I was arrested in the middle of the highway by SWAT team. And with my brother David, we faced a trial, and we were found guilty. That's why I have to deal with a probation officer at this moment like a good seasoned criminal. Because I would not shut down the church in the middle of the greatest tragedy that this country has ever seen. The level of corruption coming from the federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Because don't kid yourself, we're not dealing with a virus if it comes to biology. We're dealing with a virus called Trudeau. We're dealing with a virus called Kenny. We're dealing with a virus called the Chief of Police, Newfield. We are dealing with a virus that's true. That part they have figured it out. They just have wrong names. There is a virus in the land, coming straight from the corrupted so-called representatives, servants of the people. They're serving only their own bellies. To stand for what I think right. Is standing for your family the right thing to do? Is standing for your children the right thing to do? Is standing for your business the right thing to do? You see, Trudeau didn't give you that business. That pizza that was shut down, the restaurant, the business that your grandfather started does not belong to the premier or prime minister or the mayor of the city. It belongs to you. How dare they shut it down? How dare they invade your place? Who those uncircumcised Philistines think they are? Free to oppose what I believe wrong. Well, hear me now. Pastor Art Pawlowski opposes corruption, and I have a right to do so. I oppose treachery, because what we're seeing right now is treachery at the highest levels. Those people have sold you and this beautiful nation to a foreign entities. They should be charged with treason, all of them. Or free to choose those who shall govern my country. We can't even do that anymore because the votes are corrupted. We can't even have a good election these days because they're using fraudulent computers. It was very interesting when I was in the States last year. The machines, the Dominion machines, were coming from United States to Canada for our election. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was a very simple truth. Well, this year there will be no free and democratic election. And I was right. This mayor of this city won with every seat, every riding. Are you kidding me? She will have to be God to win.
Nobody knew her.
Who is she? Of course we know they have stolen our democracy. They have stolen elections. We know that. But let me give you a little bit of hope. Solidarity movement had no power whatsoever if it comes to communism. Communism and socialism. Look at Solidarity movement and they said, you have no political power, you have no money, you have nothing. However, within the first year, it grew to 1 million strong. And the government started to fear the movement, so they outlawed the movement. They said, from now on, solidarity with each other is illegal. And if we will catch you with a banner or with a stamp or with a pamphlet that has solidarity on it, you'll go to prison. Within a year, it grew to 3 million. Within a few years after that, when they declared martial law, when they arrested tens of thousands of people associated with the solidarity movement, it grew to 10 million strong. It outgrew the Communist Party 3-1. And in 1989, for the first time since the Second War ended, Poland had free and democratic election. Why am I telling you this? Because we can win. As bad as it is, we can win. And we don't need their offices at this moment. What we need each other. If we will in solidarity come and support each other, it's over for the villains. Or free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom, I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind. So I want to echo those words today for all to hear. And I give you the same pledge that I will also stand for those God-given rights. So help me God. So Canadians, fellow patriots, freedom lovers, be blessed and stay free. Amen? God bless you.
Thank you so much for coming. I so appreciate you being here. And I would just like to add a little bit to what he said, because something that Pastor Art just said really struck me. And right now it is about action. We can no longer just wait for someone to come save us. No one's coming. It is up to each and every one of us individually to keep our freedom. Because we still do have it right now. It may not feel like it, and for some people, a little more restricted than others, unfortunately. But it's because they were allowed so early. But we have to, in big numbers, get loud. We have to individually do things in our community. And it starts small, whether it's a space like this, whether it's in your church, whether it's just in your community and you're going and picking up garbage. Every single action that you take to help your community builds relationships, it builds your community, and you're helping each other. We cannot lose when we're using love as a tool. So we have a couple more great speakers coming up. I will introduce our next speaker. He's pretty special to me. I might be a little bit biased, but anyway, he's got a really great story to tell you guys with his own journey through the last couple of years. And and we really want to make this night about celebrating all of us for coming together and fighting for our freedom and our constitutional rights. So again, I'll introduce you to Kerry Lambert. He was the owner of Outlaws Bar and is now does a lot of things. I'll let him tell you his story.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Vicky and Monica, for inviting me to come out here. And a lot of people It's actually amazing. It has been a journey for me for the last. I'm getting guidance here. Quite a journey over the last, well, probably just over a year. So I'm going to say about 15, 16 months now. I was a partner in Outlaws Taphouse and Bar, and that's how I started. And during that time, we opened officially on February 28th, 2020. And then if you remember, we were all closed as of March 17th, 2020. So we were open for 19 days. That's how this whole journey started. So I happened to be out in New Orleans at the time, because I also own a jukebox and arcade games company, entertainment type of company, so I do trade shows all over the place. So I was down in New Orleans when the NBA shut down, and I was on a really busy Bourbon Street. If you even know what that is down there, it's just like, it's like a bar as far as the eye can see, but it's outdoors. The very next day I was off to Memphis, and I was on Beale Street, and I could have counted the number of people on Beale Street. So within 24 hours down in the States, everybody didn't know what was going on. My trade show was canceled. I ended up going to Graceland and Sun and Stax Records, which was great because I didn't even have that planned. And I ended up going to, or we were planning on going to Nashville after that. And of course, we were called back from his great old honorable Mr. Trudeau. And so that's what I did. I came back, and just like everybody here, they were afraid for those 2 weeks. And we had to deal with that with the bar. We weren't even sure if we were going to stay open. During that time, I had numerous bars that I was dealing with, bars and restaurants that were closed. And we didn't think we would get out of this. And then, it was kind of like, yeah, you know what, we'll figure this out. Everybody just needs to wear a mask now. Okay, great, we'll just wear a mask and just wear plexiglass and all over your body. Whatever you need to do, that's what we're gonna do to get through this. And we kind of opened up again in October 2020. We actually had entertainment, although at that point you couldn't really sing, but you could play, and then we opened up for singing. And then by November 26th of 2020, we were all dead again. That's it. We can't go out, we can't do anything. We're just going to shut ourselves down. And the bars themselves actually closed December 12th until February 8th. And I'm giving you these dates because these dates are put into my brain because they just don't make any sense, and everybody knows that they don't make any sense. But during that time, Vicki asked me to talk about the early heroes, or the unsung heroes, or people that were early adopters and kind of became awake, I guess, earlier then. And that's exactly what my business partner, Marla, at the time did. She said, these masks don't make any sense. I can't wear a mask myself. What are we going to do? And so we decided that we were going to open and probably face closure by not wearing masks. So there was a mask exemption for patrons, but there was not a mask exemption for anybody that worked at anywhere. You always had to have a mask on. So we said, you know what, we'll just open up. Well, in the meantime, there was another hero that opened up, and his name is Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop Cafe. So he opened up on January 26th, and the rumor was that we would have been able to open up by February 15th, but because of him pressing Kenny to open earlier, everybody did get to open earlier. We opened on February 8th, so that was great. Kudos to him. And during that time, I became friends with him because I was calling him to say, what do you think we should do? And of course, he had no idea back then. We were all kind of oblivious to what was going on. And he said, you know what, if you open, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to get shut down. Well, and again, I know a bunch of different restaurants and bars that were closed by that time. So sure enough, we opened on February 8th, no masks. Kind of met Vicki around the same times. They were the first group to come in without masks and saying, hooray, you guys are freedom fighters, let's go. And that was the Monday, and by the Friday, we received our first closure notice. 2 weeks later, they had, and I'm going to use a term that Pastor Art says, the Gestapo came in. It was the gang suppression unit, 6 guys this tall, staring down at me, because I look so intimidating. And they basically said that's it, you got to shut down. So we closed at the end of the night at 10 o'clock, And my business partner, Marla, was actually away dealing with a family emergency. And I told her, I'm opening the next day. So she said, yeah, go ahead. At this point, why not? So we did. We opened this Saturday. And sure enough, the cops came in and said, you guys can't be open. And it's like, well, I'm running through the paperwork here, and nothing actually says we officially have to be closed and lock the doors. And the paperwork basically said exactly that. We didn't have to be. So sure enough, we ended up closing, or not staying open. So we stayed open until the government actually came in and pressured AHS to take away our food handling permit. The AGLC took away our liquor license. It's pretty tough to run a bar without a liquor license. And the city of Calgary came in and took away our business license. And then we ended up doing a rally in front of AGLC, and that was on Rebel News. And kudos to Rebel News, but I'll get to that a little bit later. They were great, but by the time we went through all that process, they had already put pressure on our landlord to shut us down. So it wasn't the fact that AHS had the strength or AGLC had the strength to shut us down, because we basically said, well, screw you guys. It was the pressure that they put on the landlord basically caused us to shut down. So that little bit of knowledge, I now know that's what's happened with all of these other restaurants and bars. And that's why the Whistle Stop kept going, because he owned his building. And he was able to do his takeout service. And he was able to have a patio outdoors when we couldn't go inside to eat. So there's all these little things that kind of check marked for them and X'd off for us, so we lost the bar. And people ask us, so when are you guys opening up again? When are you opening again? That place is no longer open. It was taken over by another company, which now has 30 VLTs in the space. So that money is going directly to the government. So I've got a little bit of theory on that. I'm not going to say that on the microphone, but you can probably get where I'm going with that. Yes. So when Vicki asked about the unsung heroes, I did want to bring up some of the names that people had said. Of course, it was Pastor Art, and everybody knows Chris Sky and RC the Rapper and James Topp, who's now marching his way out to Ottawa, and of course everybody here knows Jesse Johnson from Without Papers. Those are the people that immediately come to mind now, because as humans we have very short attention spans. They really do. And I've brought this up a couple of times. Did you know it was 2 years ago when we had The Tiger King on Netflix? And it feels like, how long ago was that? That must have been 10 years ago. No, that was at the start of this. But what I wanted to do is actually name off some names, and if you know them, great. But I think it's good to acknowledge that they were the early people that basically tried to fight the government. And so my business partner, Marla Fraser, Deborah Clark from the Tipsy Cow and Hannah, Carlos, you can hold your applause. Carlos, and I cannot pronounce his name, so I'm going to butcher it anyways, Siguazenza from the Noble Fox in Bashaw, Natalie Klein from Blades to Fades in Innisfil, Joanne Diaz from the Arcadia Cafe and Bicycle, Scarlett McCaffrey from Ledoux Plains, Rebecca Ingram from the Gym Fitness Club, Rocco Bartolotti from the Scarpetta Italian Eatery, Holly Shell from the Bluebird Cafe in Rimbey, Lee Mean from Canadian Martial Arts Centre in Lethbridge, Christy Lee Bolton from Hockey Central in Sylvan Lake, and David Gale, who's also a DJ host and works out in Nanton and Euro Productions. These were all people that stood up right away, and if we all had stood up right back then, none of this would be going on. So, we all failed. Going forward, we're not going to fail. The strength since the convoy has been ridiculous. So if you don't know, again, Vicki put together this slideshow of everybody that was kind of involved right from the get-go, and kind of, I know the people that were actually dressed up like that. It's a hero's night. You guys are all heroes, first of all, for coming out and supporting and standing for freedom. You guys are amazing. I had a bunch of different notes that I was going to go off on, but basically I just want to say that when looking forward, what are we going to be able to do to further our freedom cause, right? And the thing that I keep coming back to is getting involved. And I've basically spoken at, I've lost track how many things I've spoken at about getting involved, and whether or not you're involved in this community, whether or not you're involved in your own community or around your house or your neighborhood, whether you're not involved in a political a movement, you need to get involved. And I cannot stress that anymore. It's great to go to rallies. I still go to rallies. It's great, rah, rah, rah. But we need to do action now. And the only way we're going to be able to do that action is to somehow get a vehicle in order to do that. So Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop and myself and a group formed an association. It's a nonprofit association. It's called WS Full Steam Ahead. I put Chris's ugly mug up on there. Please, you can go check that out, wsfullsteamahead.org. And what we basically are a vehicle to help people sort through their mandates. Essentially, we started as, I just lost my job, what can I do now? Right? And I lost my job because I wouldn't take the jab, or friends have hate me, I'm disowned from my family, what can I do? So it was a support group. And from that, we've now partnered with a political educational vehicle called the Alberta Prosperity Project. And actually, the Alberta Prosperity Project are speaking here in 3 weeks, 3 Sundays from now, May 29th. So if you haven't been involved or even look at it, albertaprosperityproject.com, they are talking about a way out of this. And it may not, a lot of people question it when they first hear about it, because if you don't really understand the whole political process of Alberta and Canada and how we fit in, they're talking about independence and separation, however you want to call it. And Alberta is a great place to be able to do that. We have tons of natural resources. We can definitely be independent out of all the other provinces. We are the ones that could actually start this movement and possibly have the other provinces split as well. We're, the analogy that we've always said is, I love my mom and dad, but there was a time that I had to get the hell out of the house, right? And that's exactly where we are right now. And where is that line that is going to make you actually do something? For us, it was masks. For Jesse Johnson, it was the QR codes. Is it going to be someone dragging your grandmother away? I don't know what your line is, but we have to figure that out before we actually get to that point. And of course, with the Alberta Prosperity Project, they are an educational vehicle, but a political vehicle that we're a part of is the Alberta, or the Independence Party of Alberta, which Vicky is also the leader of that. So if you haven't heard anything about that, Vicky can talk to you, I can talk to you about that. I think it's very important that at least we have a solution that's available. And I'm not going to get any more political because I know you guys really want to do some gambling and you want to win some stuff. And I think there's 1 or 2 beers in this place that maybe I can even have one. So, but the last thing I did want to talk, and I haven't spoken publicly about this because it's been one of those I didn't even know if I should actually bring it up. But as you all know, when we went out on the convoy, they were taking donations. And then those donations ended up going God knows where, and then they ended up going to a different group, and then they were talking about locking down bank accounts and all that kind of stuff. So back when the early heroes were, how do I say this? When the early heroes were being put on Rebel News and all these other media, independent media, there was a group called the Democracy Fund that was set up so that if you wanted to basically send Rebel News and the Democracy Fund money, that it would go towards tickets or fighting our fines, right? And of that money, there was also supposed to be a large part that was supposed to go towards fighting our own closure. And so we were trying to sue the Alberta government, Jason Kenney, Dean Henshaw, blah, blah, blah. There was supposed to be a large portion put together for us, Outlaws, the Noble Fox, Tipsy Cow, Blades to Fades, Chris Scott and the Whistle Stop Cafe. And about a month ago, the Canadian government changed the tax law on the Democracy Fund. So that basically means that the money that was supposed to go towards our legal fight is not there anymore. So they have found a way to dodge this. So that basically puts us, when we talk to our lawyer, Chad Williamson, up until this time, this entire year, he has done $3,000 worth of work for us. And if you know anything about legal fees, they're about $600 an hour. So he has put together 5 hours worth of work in this entire year. So if you don't think the system's corrupt yet, I don't know how else to convince you of that. So we are going to be doing some sort of fundraising for our own way out of this, because we are hundreds of thousands of dollars into this already, and the Democracy Fund has not paid for any of it. So that is my public statement on that. And again, if you don't know anything about Chris Scott and the Whistle Stop Cafe, him and I have a podcast that we did exclusively when we were out in the truck in the convoy, and we have 120,000 followers, which is kind of what we were hoping, that we would have 120,000 followers through the Alberta, the Independence Party of Alberta. If we had that many followers in the Independence Party of Alberta, we'd be able to just overthrow the government like right now. We wouldn't even have to wait till next May, because we really do only have about 48, 49 weeks in order to overpower or to win a provincial election and then possibly go further with that. So things to ponder and think about, and I'm around for the next hour if anybody wants to have a conversation, but by all means, please enjoy the night. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and party on. Garth.
Thank you. You're allowed to kiss me. Thank you. So we have one final speaker tonight, and I'm so glad he showed up. I was a little bit worried about him, but I won't take up too much more time, because like I said, we want to have some fun here tonight and get things rolling. So Devlin, I'd love to have you come up and give us some more words of inspiration here, buddy.
Go Devlin.
Well, the topic being what it is tonight, there's definitely a lot of people that we could name, and I'm sure you've heard many of them already. I definitely heard a great handful of people who I've met over this last 2 years that have inspired me in a lot of ways, for sure. Jesse Johnson being one of them in a big way. I was down at the Without Papers Pizza rally like every Thursday when that all started, and I can say that wholeheartedly, I never really thought I would be, avidly protesting every single week, especially when I was 25, 26. I figured I'd be trying to travel somewhere, but as we all know, that's not an option. So the heroes over the last 2 years, really, they deserve more than what we can really put into words. And they've lost more than we can put into words. Yes, they've lost businesses and money, obviously financially, but they've lost a lot more emotionally than we can really put to a scale. And you know that they're still standing here fighting hard, so it means that they're hardened individuals for sure, because it doesn't take a lot in this day and age to get someone down to the point of them essentially not wanting to do anything anymore. And we see that a lot, probably not with anybody in this room here, that's for sure, but I can tell you that I guarantee one of you knows somebody in your life that doesn't really have much drive, and the thousands of people that we gather around every weekend are the kinds of individuals that really are going to shape the future, because the people who are going to sit back and just casually let everyone tell them what to do are not going to be the ones that drive a path for the rest to follow. And the path that our government set forward is one that many people think is the only way forward, and the longer that we continue to gather like this and recognize the people, the heroes who have stood up, the more we're going to shine light on the right path forward for these people to follow. And a lot of people are easily swayed. You sit them down in front of a TV and they'll be brainwashed within a week. But you could take that same person to our rallies and wake them up, but then put them back in front of the TV and they'll get brainwashed again. And that's just how a lot of people are. They don't critically think, they don't have discernment, and the heroes that we recognize are the ones who are going to have to, like I said, shine the light for these people that don't really see a way forward except to follow the herd. And there's enough people that are going to question all of this BS we've seen to wake up the majority of these sheep that follow. And the only way that they aren't going to wake up is if we allow for this division to continue that the government has pushed on all of us, because then we can't unite with them and we can't wake them up, and then the only thing they have to follow is the same government that's been lying to them. So, I mean, I see a lot of people, like I know people specifically who have like started not inviting their vaccinated friends to things, even if they're still on good terms with their vaccinated friend. And obviously vice versa, like there's obviously vaccinated people who are not inviting non-vax people out. And I mean, I do my best to really tell people, like, that's what they want. They want us to seek this division because they've artificially sewed it into our lives. So
what's the answer?
Well, the answer, honestly, is to watch what these heroes we're recognizing tonight do, because every single one of them is stepping forward to show what we need to do. So the next and best thing we can do
What
is...
do you want us to do? What's the call to action?
There's no call. The call's inside of you.
Make one!
Keep standing up. That's what you have to do. And if you're going to sit there and look for somebody to tell you what to do, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself what to do. Because that's the only way it's going to work.
What she said.
So again, there's a lot of people that we can point towards that have really set examples for what we need to do and the morals that we need to have. And going forward, if more of us can stand up, like Kerry said, if we did in the beginning, if we just stood up and said no, we wouldn't be here right now. But I can say that over these last 2 years, I've had more positive things come into my life than negative. And that's because of the people that are around. So enjoy the night, make it a positive thing, because that's not what they want in this world, so let's make the opposite happen and keep making connections through all the division that they're pushing on us.